Chapter 31, June's Reign. Get out of the way. The axe-wielding warrior in heavy armor was also anxious as she gave Fireball a kick. Having fought with Gufei for quite some time before all this, the warrior did not hold back with her kick. Since Fireball was not an expert like Gufei, he was knocked away easily and flew for about 5 meters, even managing to somersault twice. As he lay prone on the ground, Fireball opened his eyes and exclaimed something very disgraceful in the end, "Fuck, what a babe." The armor clinked loudly as the lady knelt on the ground. She picked up the bandage roll that Fireball had dropped and began to deftly patch up Gufei without muttering a word. "Hey," Gufei softly called. "What?" the lady asked. "Can you apply the medication before bandaging me?" "What do you think?" Gufei asked. "Crap!" she quickly shouted. The lady unwound the bandage strip, picked up a bottle of medication, and directly poured it over his wounds. Gufei felt worn out. He tried to remind himself that this was just a game, so the issue of hygiene should not cause a serious problem like wound infection. He did not mention any of this out loud though and just quietly subjected himself to the lady's ministrations. His HP stopped dropping once the bleeding abated with the help of the medication and bandage. Gufei got back up to his feet after Luo bestowed heal on him a few more times. Neither his back nor his waist was in pain anymore. Fireball, who still lay prone on the ground about 5 meters away, could not say the same, however. He lifted his neck as he called out, "Save me." Gufei irately made his way over, and went about helping him up. Once Gufei squatted down next to his body, Fireball whispered to him, "Drunk bro, don't bother with me. I'm waiting for the babe to come over and help me get up." Gufei felt angry. Having already lifted him up halfway, he immediately threw him back on the ground once more and walked away. The two ladies felt it was weird, so they looked at Fireball as they asked Gufei, "What's wrong?" "He's already dead," Gufei declared. Both swept their eyes over Fireball and did not say another word. Seeing that the fight was already over and that it was resolving toward a happy ending, the crowd simply lost interest and noisily dispersed. "Let's go in." Luo invited Gufei and the warrior back to the tavern. Gufei indicated the two ladies to enter before him. He expressionlessly stared at Fireball for a bit before going in as well. Fireball felt snubbed as he crawled back up to his feet, still dusty from the fight, and quickly followed the others inside. Everyone in the tavern was seated once more. Luo and the warrior sat beside each other on one side of the circular table. Gufei waited for Fireball to catch up before they joined and sat across the ladies. The warrior had taken off her equipment, helmet, axe, and suit of armor, one by one, and stuffed them into her dimensional pocket before she sat down. It was quite an unbelievable sight. But since everyone was already familiar with how the game inventory system worked, no one felt surprised. The lady's commoner clothes, probably sold at a thrift and game shop, became visible once she had taken off her heavy armor. Her long hair was in a mess after being confined in the armor for so long. Her sweaty appearance due to the huge fight a while ago made her seem like someone who belonged to the beggar sect in a wuxia novel. She tidied herself up and lifted her head to stare at Gufei and Fireball as they sat down. "Hey, weren't you dead?" the lady inquisitively looked at Fireball. "Oh, man, this woman is far too silly." The corners of Gufei's mouth twitched as he casually said, "This tavern is really close to a spawn point." "There's a spawn point nearby?" the woman wondered aloud. No one bothered to explain the situation to her. Luo gazed at her and Gufei for a bit before asking, "What's up with you two?" Gufei had on a forced smile as he proceeded to tell her of the misunderstanding between him and the female warrior that had occurred not long ago. Fireball uproariously laughed out loud on the spot. Luo, being a model of beauty and grace, tried her very best not to laugh. However, she gave up halfway through the story. She held her hand against her mouth, turned her cheek to the side, and giggled uncontrollably. "Oi, it's not funny at all," the warrior woman indignantly said as she slapped the table. "Agree," Gufei said seriously. "I've walked past there many times. The misunderstanding has already happened quite a few times. Yes, I wasn't the only one who ran up to him." "What are you all laughing for?" the lady muttered angrily. I'll stop." Luo removed her hand from her mouth and maintained a slight smile as she sat there. Fireball forced himself to stop laughing as well, even as he shook visibly from the effort. nearly flipping the table from his lack of propriety. Seeing that Gufei was not mocking her, the warrior decided to bury the hatchet between them and addressed him. "My name's June's Rain." "You? 1,000 miles drunk," Gufei said. "And you?" June's Rain stared at Fireball. She figured that since he was seated at the same table as them, she should at least ask for his name as well. Fireball's smiling face transformed into a crying face when she asked. Luo smiled. "His name's Fireball. If you're called Fireball, just say Fireball." "What are you crying for?" June's Rain was surprised. "I'm a mage." Fireball's tears rolled down his face. "So what?" June's Rain asked. Gufei shook his head by the side. Something must be wrong within the heads of these two. June's Rain failed to grasp the joke behind Fireball's name, and remained clueless even after Fireball mentioned that he was a mage. She was so ditzy that it hurt. Fireball was no better either. Replying "So what if you're called Fireball" with "I'm a mage" was not the least bit connected. Fireball's name only inconvenienced the mages, such as Gufei, around him when they had to say his name during conversations. It had nothing to do with what his job class was. It was not as if he would call out his own name outside of battle often. June's Rain did not understand the meaning behind Fireball's name but decided to let it go. Instead, she focused her attention back to Gufei. "Your name seems familiar. Is that so?" Gufei smiled as he thought of how he had the title of being the second most efficient player in leveling up. "Oh, yeah." June's Rain suddenly slapped the table and stood up. "You're the guy who got into our guild." Gufei instinctively pulled out the guild tab and took a look. He indeed found her name on the list at level 30, albeit she was one position lower than him. When he looked at the guild tab for the first time that day, he was so startled by how all the guild members were listed as female that he did not focus on their names. Afterward, he never bothered to look through the name list again since he did not care who they were. "Ziu1, don't say that. It's all a misunderstanding." Luo attempted to help Gufei explain the situation. "Is that so?" June's Rain looked at Gufei. "Really? Even if it's just a misunderstanding to begin with, what if he starts having certain ideas?" June's Rain had abundant experience with online games. One could tell this just from her obsession with hidden quests. Because a majority of players in online games were males, they tended to flock toward the female players. If not for the fact that online games had many G.I.R.L2 players, the men would have continued to bother every female character they encountered. However, males could no longer masquerade as females in Parallel World, seeing as all retained their real appearance. Furthermore, a few sensitive issues emerged that did not need to be mentioned given how realistic the game's immersion system was. This was why many male players could be seen hitting on female players all the time in Yunjuan City. An all-female guild like Amethyst Rebirth would naturally attract these lecherous male players' attention. Although June's Rain was not that bright when it came to most matters, she was exceptionally attuned with matters pertaining to the game. Gufei could only smile with regard to her suspicion, not saying another word. "I don't care what you do with the others, just don't dare to hit on me." "Truth be told, I'm a lesbian, so I'm not interested in men," June's Rain stated. "Really?" Gufei could not help but laugh. She was so bad at lying. It was a wonder how she came up with it. "Since that's the case, you can just treat me like your brother," Gufei said. "That's right." The lady nodded her head seriously. She then extended her hand to Gufei. "Shake." Gufei extended his hand as well without another thought. "Fuck!" Gufei screamed internally as they shook hands. What a motherfucking violent warrior. He inexplicably felt oppressed as he swore inside him. June's Rain did not hold back with her grip's strength at all, and Gufei could not resist given his weak physique. Pain was one thing, but tolerance was another. Gufei's hand hurt as he angrily cursed in his heart, yet his face showed no change in expression whatsoever. Aren't you in pain?" June's Rain actually asked him this. "Of course, it hurts," Gufei admitted honestly. "So why aren't you reacting?" Gufei simply laughed. "I'm a man after all." "Alright, stop this nonsense." Luo initially did not know what June's Rain was doing to Gufei, but she quickly stopped them once she heard their exchange. "There's a message from Xiaki," Luo told the two. "What's the matter?" June's Rain asked. "It appears we have obtained a guild quest. She's calling a meeting for those who are online," Luo said. "Quest? What type of quest?" June's Rain was so excited that she immediately stood up once she heard the word quest. Her reaction was that of an absolute quest fanatic. "Let's head back and take a look." Luo stood up and headed toward the door. June's Rain rushed forth as well, before turning around and staring at the still-seated Gufei. "Hey, why are you still sitting there? What? Do I have to go, too?" Gufei was astonished. "What nonsense, you're a member of our guild now." "Fine, I'm going." Gufei figured since he had nothing going on, he might as well come along. Gufei got up but then remembered that Fireball had originally asked him out. He wondered if he had something planned. Looking back at Fireball, he asked, "Are you alright?" Fireball looked visibly disappointed, shaking his head as he said, "I'm fine." "It's nothing." "Go ahead, drunk bro." Gufei nodded. When Fireball saw the two ladies turn around, he immediately bolted toward Gufei. "Call me if anything good happens." Naturally, Gufei laughed. The two women headed out of the tavern and made their way toward where Amethyst Rebirth's guild house was located. No one spoke a word while they walked. Suddenly, June's Rain started rocking back and forth, laughing raucously. "What?" Gufei and Luo were puzzled. That guy's name is Fireball." "Ha ha 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 ha." "That's funny." June's Rain was almost in tears. "What sort of brain does she have?" Gufei lamented. Chapter notes: 1. Ziu is the nickname of June's Rain. 2. GIRL stands for Guy in real life. Chapter 32, the legendary teammate. The people inside the Amethyst Rebirth's guild house gazed oddly at the three that just entered the conference room together. Everyone had the same thought. Why have these three arrived together? The guild members clearly got along well with one another, as it did not take long for Luo and June's Rain to blend into the crowd and exchange pleasantries with them. Gufei felt out of place as he stood there by himself. July was the only one who specially approached and welcomed him. "Come on over." Gufei nodded. One of the reasons he came here with Luo and June's Rain was because he had received a message from July as well when Luo mentioned that there's a message from Xiaki earlier. Otherwise, he would not even bother showing up here no matter how much June's Rain pestered him. A room full of women was undoubtedly a spectacular sight to behold. Gufei thought that this might be the only chance in his lifetime to be alone with so many women inside the same room, unless he barged into a female restroom by mistake. In all honesty, Gufei felt quite awkward with the current situation and slightly regretted coming here. He distanced himself from them and sat down near a window, absent-mindedly looking outside from time to time. July regarded the people inside the room by the side and clapped her hands to get their attention. "Everyone online is actually here. It's amazing that so many of you came, considering I have only called once." "Sis Xiaki, what kind of guild quest did you get?" An excited voice could be heard saying this. Gufei knew that the speaker was June's Rain without even looking. Now that he knew she was a woman, he thought her voice was rather girly. Strange. Why didn't it sound girly at all when I wasn't aware of her gender? "Oh, it's nothing too difficult, but it's still our first guild quest," July replied. The quests in Parallel World were different from the quests in some MMOs, which were categorized into different levels or clearly classified according to the degree of difficulty. In this game, players would only find out how difficult a quest was after they accepted and explored it for themselves. A quest was something the players would always need to explore on their own. Fortunately, it was the information age. People would always share their findings on the forums whenever they did a quest. Hence, the current trend for players was to search through the forum's quests section for relevant information whenever they received an unfamiliar quest before carrying on with it. July had immediately looked for the relevant information online after receiving the guild quest. She believed that this particular quest would not be a problem for Amethyst Rebirth, considering that a lot of newly established small guilds, with similar or fewer number of members to them, were able to complete it. Although June's Rain was a quest fanatic, her forte actually lay in individual quests. She had never paid attention to group activities like guild quests before. As a result, she kept on asking stuff after July stated the quest's name. Retrieval of the stolen treasure chest. The quest had a very typical story behind it. Basically, it stated that a treasure chest that had gone missing resurfaced somewhere else, and it was now up to the players to recover it. July pulled out the regional map that she had prepared from the start and spread it out on the table. She started to brief everyone on the details. I've checked it online. The treasure chest might be in one of these 7 locations. July pointed each of the 7 areas that had been marked on the map. These places are quite far apart, Luo said. July nodded and said, other players suggested separating the guild members into smaller groups to find the exact spot of the treasure chest before gathering everyone again to act together. That's what I have in mind as well. Among the guilds that had completed the same quest, there was a guild that succeeded with only 6 participating members. As for us right now, July turned around to confirm their number, there are 14 of us, so I believe this won't be a big deal. Gu Fei remained seated and did not join the circle of ladies to look at the map. When he heard July saying how it was possible to succeed with just 6 people, he was about to say, I'll be leaving, then. But July resumed her speech, there are 14 of us, so let's divide ourselves into 7 groups with 2 people each. Just enough for searching at the 7 different places. All the ladies nodded in agreement, and Gu Fei had to swallow back his words. Let's start forming the groups. Everyone could not help but to turn their eyes toward Gu Fei after hearing July's words. Frankly speaking, the female players around did not actually discriminate against the male players. Still, it was not acceptable for them to have Gu Fei in their guild when it was decided from the beginning that it would be an all-female guild. Now that they were about to be divided into groups, it was only normal that nobody wanted to be paired with a stranger like Gu Fei. Of course, July knew well what everyone had in mind. However, it was not worthwhile to delve into such minor matter right now, so she asked Gu Fei instead, Miles, who do you wish to be paired with? When Gu Fei heard that they would be divided into groups, he had expected himself to be kicked around like a ball. He was even slyly wondering who would be the unlucky one to be paired with him. He never thought that July would be so considerate toward him to actually give him a chance to choose one among all the 13 ladies. Gu Fei checked everyone swiftly and stopped when his eyes reached Jun's Rain. He smiled and said, I'll form a group with Zhu1. Why me? Jun's Rain bellowed. 'Cause we're brothers. Gu Fei laughed. Jun's Rain was left speechless, and the others looked on with puzzled expressions. Luo was the only one smirking. For a moment, the whole room echoed with laughter as Luo squeezed herself into the crowd and whispered something to all of them. Very well, you two will be heading here. July pointed randomly at a spot on the map. Gu Fei had already pulled the door open, leaving Jun's Rain with no choice but to head off with Gu Fei toward their destination. The others had an easy time forming into groups. They were soon seen leaving the guild house as well and making their way to each of the specified locations. 7 different locations, each proportionally placed in 7 different directions around Yanduan City. Fortunately, this was a system-generated quest. If it were a player-submitted quest, that player would have been beaten black and blue by the other players who had accepted the quest. They would be thinking something like, you did a great job gathering all this information, but how dare you have us go in these 7 separate locations in such unusual places. Since it was a quest, Jun's Rain was visibly filled with enthusiasm. She did not even look back once and just kept on marching forward once she exited the guild house. Seeing her dauntlessness, Gu Fei felt a little pumped up for the quest as well. He followed behind her while trying to appear imposing. Unfortunately for Gu Fei, he did not look even the least bit imposing with his current appearance. Jun's Rain equipped her set of combat gear one by one along the way. She gave off a powerful and intimidating aura with a huge axe resting on her shoulder. Her full body heavy armor revealed nothing but a small part of her face. As for Gu Fei, he still wore the beginner mage robe. While he might look stylish every time the wind blew against him, he probably only looked foolish in the eyes of the professional gamers. For them, it was highly likely for the wind to blow Gu Fei's awful equipment into scraps given its garbage quality. The two were strolling along quite gamely when they heard somebody calling them, Gu Fei's name to be exact, from behind. Turning around, they saw July and another lady that Gu Fei did not know trying to catch up to them. Gu Fei and Jun's Rain stopped as July caught up to them. She took something out of her pocket and handed it to Gu Fei. Here, take this. Gu Fei received the item and inspected it. It was a magic staff, which increased intelligence by 8 points, spirit by 3 points, and damage output of fire-based spells by 20%. It was a nice weapon for mage, yet Gu Fei thoughtlessly blurted out, the attack is so low. Low? With a puzzled expression, July took the staff back and had another look at it. The two did not seem to be on the same wavelength, as the mage Gufei was the one who actually made a fuss about the staff's physical attack instead of the fighter July. Appraising the magic staff, its maximum and minimum attack was clearly displayed. Unfortunately, no matter how high its grade was, Gufei would still consider his broken common grade sword with a higher physical attack to be better. The magic attack was what mattered most in magic staves, and this particular one did not actually possess a low magic attack. In fact, it was already considered a high-grade mage weapon on the current market. What about the one you're using? Let me take a look. July felt curious as to what kind of wondrous magic staff Gufei was using. It would have been better if he had said that the magic staff did not provide a good boost in stats for the wielder, yet he actually complained about its low physical attack. Can't show you. It's broken, Gufei said. He was referring to his sword. The two were definitely not operating on the same wavelength. Well, make do with this one for now. July coldly handed the staff back to him. Okay. Gufei took the magic staff with a look of reluctance. July was dumbfounded by his attitude. Even if the magic staff was inferior to the one he had previously used, it was still a high-grade weapon. To think that Gufei actually accepted the weapon as if he had been wronged. Actually, July decided to give him this magic staff when she noticed that he was wearing trash equipment after using appraisal on him. In the end, Gufei did not even thank her. Alright, get moving. July waved at Gufei and June's Rain as she left in another direction together with the other lady. Gufei and June's Rain continued toward their destination as well. The warrior clad in heavy armor could be seen walking in front with a huge axe resting on her shoulder, while walking closely behind her was what seemed to be a beginner mage carrying a magic staff on his shoulder as well. The two swaggered through the streets until they left Yanjuan City. June's Rain suddenly stopped walking and turned around, asking Gufei who was behind her, "Which way are we going?" Gufei despaired beyond all reasons. He suddenly felt that he had made a huge mistake by choosing to pair up with her. However, it was too late for regrets now. Gufei could only ask her feebly, "Aren't you the one who actually looked at the map?" "Nonsense. I don't even know how to look at a map," June's Rain said that righteously. "Well, I don't know how either." Gufei refrained from saying that he did not actually see the map at all. June's Rain seemed to have finally found someone she could relate to. She asked, "So what do we do now?" "We ask the others." Gufei felt mentally drained as he pulled out his friends list to send July a message. July replied to them shortly, pointing them toward the direction they should be heading to. "Let's go," Gufei said as he resumed walking. This time, however, he was the one walking in front and June's Rain was the one following behind. The location July directed them to was called Yunjia Lakeside. The Yun referred to Yunjuan City, and there was a lake called Yunjia Lake at that area. By combining the name together, it would mean something like a lake by the outskirts of Yunjuan City, which was considerably straightforward. Gufei naturally knew where it was. The problem was that June's Rain had led him outside Yunjuan City using the wrong gate from the start. Now, they had to take a big detour to reach their designated destination. Gufei sighed deeply as he remembered a saying, "Fear not the godlike opponents but the pig-like teammates." He had a hunch that he had just met a pig-like teammate told in the legends. The latest quest got off to a bad start. Chapter Notes 1. Ziu is the nickname of June's Rain. Chapter 33, Yunjia Lakeside. The lakeside by the city's outskirt looked scenic and picturesque. It was definitely a great spot to have a romantic date. Although the players were all still stuck at level 30, they were making great strides in matters of the heart. Yunjia Lakeside was definitely thriving with this sort of people. In fact, any players would have to watch their steps when they walked by the lakeside given the many couples lazing on the grassy areas. Gufei would not put it past June's Rain to step on a couple or two given that she was a natural airhead. Indeed, she had already stepped right between a couple not long after entering the region. "Watch where you're going. Can't you see there are people lying here?" The two were startled and repeatedly apologized as they took a detour. Gufei became extremely careful afterward. He even used the high-grade magic staff like a blind man's walking aid, shifting it about the tall grass and bushes as he called out, "Is anyone there?" There were no longer any incidents after the lovebirds from before, as the people within the tall grass and bushes changed locations upon hearing his call and seeing the stick he was wildly beating about. Gufei and June's Rain finally made their way to the lake. The lake calmly rippled with cerulean water, appearing pristine and well maintained. There were rumors that some players had begun researching what crafting skills were necessary to enable shipbuilding. Good business opportunities would definitely become available once a small jetty was built by the lakeside and industrious players carved out some boats for rental purposes. Just as Gufei was appreciating the view, June's Rain beside him broke the tranquility as she hollered, "Ah, treasure chest! Where are you?" Treasure chest. Countless ears perked up within the tall grassy fields after hearing these words. Pairs of eyes flashed and stared at the two that had just arrived. Gufei looked around. Since the quest was to retrieve a treasure chest, monsters would most likely be protecting it. A sparse number of monsters were still roaming in the vicinity of the lakeside. Considering that the place was akin to a lover's district in game, not many players went here to grind on monsters, thus leaving the NPCs largely untouched. Gufei's eyes continued to travel around and found no traces of a spot where monsters particularly gathered. "Let's just go around and search." Left with no choice, they could only forge their way ahead to what appeared to be a small group of monsters. Many others stealthily followed behind and kept watch on the two who had mentioned a treasure chest a while ago. "Nope. Not here. Can't find it here either." June's Rain cleared the monsters while shouting in vexation as she went. June's Rain was a level 30 warrior who focused on strength, allowing her to make short work of the low-level monsters in the vicinity with just a few chops of her axe without Gufei's assistance. Gufei concentrated on searching around nearby. Although he failed to find the treasure, he did manage to poke out two more couples from within the tall grass. In no time, the two had already made their way halfway around the lake. Those players who were crawling behind them had mostly left since there were still no signs of the treasure chest after all this time. Gufei had long since felt disheartened by this whole process. Even though June's Rain was still in high spirits, her morale did not diminish even a single bit since they left the guild house. Gufei suddenly felt a kindred connection with this lady, as her obsession with quests in online games was quite similar to his obsession with Kung Fu. June's Rain continued to search for the treasure chest, while conscientiously eliminating the monsters and ripping off the tall grass. Gufei had already begun to slack off, casually using his staff to probe the area around him while yawning from time to time. Laziness had taken root within him. It was similar to what regular players felt when they had spent a certain amount of time grinding on the same monsters in one spot. Suddenly, June's Rain shouted, "It's over here." "Where?" Gufei's interest was rekindled, since finding the treasure chest would signal the end of the quest. June's Rain happily pointed toward the bushes halfway up the hill ahead. A treasure chest really sat on the sawn-off stump of a great tree, yet there was not one monster in sight. "That's it?" Gufei wondered. "Didn't July mention something about notifying everyone to gather so that we could all snatch the treasure chest away? Is there even a need for that when one could carry it home just like what Ziu is doing right now?" As she went ahead to grab the chest, the bushes behind her suddenly rustled as a few figures rushed toward the treasure chest as well. "Crap! It's an ambush!" "What cunning monsters!" June's Rain shouted. They were not monsters but rather players who had trailed behind them. Gufei was well aware of the bunch of players crawling behind him and June's Rain. He had a fair grasp of their intentions as well. However, he assumed that since the treasure chest was their quest item, then it could only be obtained after going through the quest. Never did he imagine that the chest would just sit on a tree stump, tempting everyone who saw it. June's Rain was the closest to the chest. However, she clearly had a difficult time rushing uphill with her suit of heavy armor. The others caught up to her just as she clinked away in those few steps. Gufei came forward and extended his magic staff with one hand and struck to his left and right in a practiced motion, smacking the two players with resounding slaps each. Utilizing the magic staff in such a way could only cause a scant amount of damage, but it still managed to startle the two people that just got hit. Having crawled behind Gufei and June's Rain all this time, they had used appraisal on Gufei for more than 180 times out of boredom and already determined his job class to be Mage. They were expecting something like burning flames from Gufei when he charged toward them, yet they were whacked on their heads with a magic staff instead. As the two stood rooted on the spot in a muddle, Another pair had used the opportunity to get past them. Although Gufei was a full agility mage with a decent amount of speed, it was still nothing compared to the thieves' speed. Seeing that he had no way of catching up to them, he reached into his pocket, took out a meat carving knife, and threw it at a target. The person on the left was struck by the knife, screaming in pain. He reached for his back and plucked the knife out from his butt, just as he stood there stunned. Just what is this skill? Right then, Gufei already retrieved a second knife and began to aim at the person on the right. Just as this player was about to gleefully get past June's reign, her arm had unexpectedly shot out and reached toward the player's collar. That thief whirled his dagger instinctively to slash at June's reign, yet the attack did not even scratch her as she was wearing the heavy armor. She then lifted her arm and heaved, tossing the flailing thief toward the lake with a splash. Gufei broke out in cold sweat, thinking how scary the violent warrior was. The strength in that arm had already surpassed any normal human standards, and yet she was only at level 30. If this continued on, her strength in the later levels would be unimaginable. The two players who were smacked silly by Gufei with the magic staff had recovered and began to make their move. After confirming that they had not suffered any grievous injuries, they hastily continued to rush forward to the chest. Gufei shouted at June's reign, "I'll block them. Go grab that treasure chest," and then he wheeled around to engage the two players. As the players realized that the magic staff in Gufei's hand could not deal any significant damage on them, they did not even bother dodging it. In fact, they sought to take the blow head-on and break through it. Gufei, who was proficient in Kung Fu, ready to counter all the incoming attacks from the players. Yet, he had not expected to encounter such an ungraceful fighting style commonly seen in online games. Being alone and lacking the proper strength to endure the tackle from his two opponents, Gufei was knocked off the ground even as he swung his staff on one of them. "You dumbass." June's reign witnessed the whole thing and decided to assist Gufei instead of picking up the treasure chest. Just as Gufei's back was about to hit the ground, he bent his waist and twisted in the air. He extended the magic staff once more and executed a horizontal swipe, viciously striking the two's feet in the process. Ouch! Ugh! Sharp screams were heard from the two as they were swept off their feet. The damage was not much, so they prepared to get up, but Gufei flipped himself upright way faster than them. Gufei picked up the magic staff and performed a swift swipe on the two players, sweeping their feet off the ground once more. "What are you two doing rushing all over the place and knocking people over? I especially despise people who fight without any expertise." Despite the weak physique Gufei possessed in game, he had remained nimble and even emitted a fierce aura. Any movement he spotted was immediately met with a blow from the magic staff. After a few quick strikes, the two players no longer dared to raise their heads. Gufei's magic staff only stopped hitting them when they were essentially tamed and no longer moved, meekly lying on the ground. He looked back and could not find where June's reign threw the person Gufei had skewered with his carving knife before. She was happily bounding toward the chest right now. Gufei suddenly noticed movement from the bush near the wooden stump and he immediately shouted out a warning, "Be careful, there's still someone around." June's reign's reaction was rather slow. Taking advantage of the momentary opening when she paused, a person from the bush dove straight toward the treasure chest. Gufei felt irked. He should not have called out June's reign, as without that moment of distraction, she would have probably managed to grab the chest by now. The opening created by Gufei's shout and the following pause of the silly girl made it possible for the person to grab the chest right in front of their eyes. The situation they were now in made Gufei endlessly annoyed. At that same instant, the sound of rushing air swiftly came from afar and the person who had dived for the chest turned into a flash of white light. "What's going on?" Gufei was shocked. June's reign's next reaction was actually incredibly quick as she immediately lay prone on the ground and hid behind the wooden stump, shouting toward Gufei, "Quickly crawl your way over here." "It's Snipe." Gufei nimbly lay on the ground and he crawled toward the previously subdued two players, as he muttered doubtfully, "Snipe? It's an archer's level 30 skill." While the damage isn't as great as a mage's repeating fireball, thief's backstab, or a warrior's cyclone, its attack range is incredibly frightening. It's essentially twice the attack range of a normal attack. You could only be shot at by the archer, and it's impossible to find out where the archer is shooting from. The person lying on the ground next to Gufei hurriedly explained. "Can't see him? Is that so?" Gu Fei smiled. Chapter 34, 10% chance of a fatal blow. The lakeside on the outskirts of Yunjuan City was silent. Nobody, even the ones hiding within the bushes, dared to move. The two players lying on their stomachs stared at Gu Fei, who had a weird smile on his face. "I'm 1,000 miles drunk." "Sorry for what happened earlier," Gu Fei said to the two. They exchanged glances. "My name's Fei Lian," said the person on the left. "I'm Ascension," said the one on the right. "Nice to meet you both." Gu Fei extended his hand and shook each of their proffered hands. The two players did not know each other prior to this, so they exchanged greetings as well. The bushes they were in shook as they introduced themselves to one another, looking absolutely impure from afar. June's Rain, who was still hiding behind the tree stump, was pure-minded, yet even she had to ask out of curiosity, "What are you three doing?" "Stop fighting already." "It's nothing. We're cool now. We're not that stupid to fight in a situation like this," Ascension said to June's Rain as he waved his hand. Unfortunately, he had raised his hand too high. His hand was like a beacon of light in the darkness, revealing their position clearly to the archer. An arrow unerringly flew toward them. Ugh! Ascension reached back and touched the arrow that had struck his waist, looking at his HP. "I'm dead." He really did die after saying these words. "Move!" Gu Fei shouted toward Fei Lian. "What are you shouting at me for?" Fei Lian was stunned. He only managed to react again after he saw Gu Fei quickly roll to the side. However, he was a bit slower in diving to the side, resulting in an arrow piercing him exactly on his right shoulder. Following that one arrow, a few more arrows flew and struck the spot that they were on mere seconds ago. Gu Fei stayed still on the ground as he turned his head. "You all right?" He had seen the kind of damage snipe could cause. Anyone who took 2 arrows consecutively would be killed for sure. "Yes." Fei Lian gritted his teeth as he answered, "The last arrow's not under snipe, so the damage it dealt is not very high." "Oh, why didn't the archer use it?" Gu Fei asked. "Snipe has a long cooldown time, so it's impossible to shoot arrows with it continuously," Fei Lian answered. "You sure know a lot." Gu Fei complimented. "That's because I'm also an archer," Fei Lian replied. "Oh, why didn't you use snipe on that person as well?" Gu Fei queried. "I'm not at level 30 yet." Fei Lian lamented. Gu Fei could only sigh after hearing his words. Plus, Fei Lian was not finished yet. "Even the regular arrow that person just shot me with dealt high damage. It means that archer's equipment is top grade." A level 30 player fully equipped with high-grade equipment was indubitably the peak state anyone could currently be in the game. It seemed like Gu Fei had chanced upon a formidable and troublesome opponent today. Gu Fei sneaked a peek up the hill. Besides the first arrow catching him by surprise, Gu Fei saw all the succeeding shots the opponent had made. The arrows might be swift, but his eyes were still far quicker. Because he could clearly see each attack, Gu Fei was certain that snipe not only had a long attack range but a fast speed as well. However, the few regular arrows the archer had shot them with indicated that the person was not hiding within the snipe's maximum range. This also meant that the opponent used snipe at a closer distance to them, meaning, it would be much harder to dodge. Gu Fei was confident that he could dodge if it was merely a normal arrow shot. However, it would be almost impossible to do so if it was snipe. "What's the cooldown time for snipe?" Gu Fei asked Fei Lian. "Official website says it's 45 seconds, Fei Lian replied, "but that still varies for each individual. We don't know if the archer has equipment that reduces waiting period." Rumors said boosting spirit stat can reduce cooldown time for skills too. 45 seconds. Gu Fei muttered. 45 seconds already passed since their opponent had last used snipe, so poking his head out now would simply result in getting one shot killed. Gu Fei needed their opponent to shoot one more arrow to pinpoint the archer's exact location. If he knew their opponent's firing target, then he would be able to determine which trajectory the arrow came from. He had a rough idea of the attacker's direction from the movement of the wind, but what he needed to know was the archer's exact hiding spot. "Ziu," Gu Fei added June's Rain to his friends list and privately messaged her. "What? How high is your defense?" Gu Fei asked. Ziu reported the number accordingly. "Why are you asking?" Gu Fei did not reply to her right away, but instead turned to ask Fei Lian, "How much damage did that normal arrow deal to you?" Fei Lian checked his HP and told him the number, while inquiring as well, "Why are you asking?" How much will Snipe increase the damage by? Gufei asked. I think it's 100%, which is twice that of a normal attack. But there's also a chance of it being a fatal blow, Fei Lian answered. Fatal blow? It ignores the opponent's defense and directly deals damage based on the target's amount of HP. Snipe has a 10% chance of causing a fatal blow at 0 proficiency, resulting in a 10% increase in fatal damage. I'm not sure how much the skill effect will increase when the proficiency is higher, Fei Lian explained. Gufei furrowed his brows. He had forgotten to consider a person's skill proficiency. This meant that calculating the exact damage the skill would deal was impossible if he was to calculate using the highest level of proficiency. Unfortunately, Parallel World had just begun and only the data for the earlier stages of job classes was revealed. As none of the players had achieved high level of proficiency, there was no data for Gufei to base his calculations on. Ziu, what's your total HP? Gufei asked once more. Based on the data reported to him, Gufei did some mental calculations and sighed. June's Rain was not wearing any particularly top-grade equipment, and given the current circumstance, there was a high possibility of her dying if the opponent managed to score a fatal blow with Snipe. Without the fatal blow, she would be left with just a sliver of HP. However, if the current opponent's proficiency with Snipe was higher, that person could not only increase the skill's base damage by 100%, it could also climb up higher, like maybe 118%, which would outright kill June's Rain without it needing to be a fatal blow. What, do you want to block the arrow? Fei Lian had guessed Gufei's train of thoughts. Not me, her, Gufei indicated June's Rain. What then? Fei Lian asked. Then we will know the archer's position and sort that person out, Gufei said. Fei Lian looked at Gufei incredulously. He spoke as if once he knew the archer's hiding place, he could take care of the person without an issue. Had he not mentioned previously how the opponent was at level 30 and wore top-of-the-line equipment? Furthermore, you still have to close in on that person. Are your mage spells able to be casted from a longer distance than a bow? A slight movement from us is enough for that archer to shoot an arrow here. How can you get past that? Fei Lian asked. Gufei laughed. Precisely. I'll move the instant a slight movement occurs. Fei Lian was puzzled. Gufei did not bother to clarify his point, while Ziu inquired from the other side, why did you ask about my defense stat and total HP? I have a plan, Gufei explained. I've calculated the archer's damage versus your defense stat and total HP. There's a 90% chance that you could withstand an arrow from that person, and 10% chance that you would be killed instantly. Oh, I'll finish the archer off, then. Since our opponent won't be able to insta-kill me, I can rush over and cleave that person with my axe, Ziu said. And how will you get that chance to close in on the archer? Even if you're not dead with the first shot, the second one will guarantee your death. Gufei could not believe what he had just heard. Oh, yeah. Ziu said, so what do we do now? You should go attract that person's attention. I'll approach from the other side and attempt to sneak attack, Gufei said. You're despicable. Ziu exclaimed. I'm not. This is a tactic, a misdirection, get it? Gufei said, feeling exasperated. And what if I get insta-killed? Ziu asked. Gufei was afraid of this question. He embarrassedly answered her, I'll still find out the archer's position and avenge you. That's great. Let's do it, then. Ziu affirmed the plan. What a gullible woman. Had it been anyone else, they would have been filled with suspicion and doubt on the feasibility of a mage taking down a level 30 archer with exceptional gear. Previously, Gufei was cudgeling his brains out on how to convince her. Never would he have thought that she would readily agree to his arrangement. Wait for my signal to stand. Just lie there for now, Gufei said. Understood. As everything around him turned silent, Gufei stealthily lay prone among the tall grass and waited for an opportunity. Fei Lian beside him had no idea that Gufei and Ziu had already discussed a battle plan. He whistled to call Gufei's attention, making him turn his head to look at him. Are you ready? Fei Lian asked. Just lie down there. Gufei smiled. It was at this moment that the calm lay crippled as the mountain breeze blew past its surface to the shore, making the thick grass sway. Get up. Gufei timely sent the order to Ziu. Ziu stood up with her armor clanking and an arrow swiftly cut through the air toward her. Although she quickly retreated back to her hiding spot, She was not fast enough to dodge the shot. Ziu was hiding behind the tree stump away from Gufei and Fei Lian, yet the archer clearly monitored her position as well. Ah, crap! Fei Lian turned his head and shouted, "Hey, where are you?" Gufei, who was right beside him a moment ago, had disappeared. All that was left was a patch of crushed grass where Gufei had once lain. He now understood what Gufei meant when he said he would move right when there was a slight movement. The opposing archer would not be able to determine their location when the breeze stirred up all the grass at once. This moment could be used to run away as well. Yet Gufei had chosen to confront a level 30 fully geared archer alone instead. Fei Lian shifted his gaze about and spotted Ziu. It appeared that she was lucky enough to avoid that 10% fatal blow, so she hid herself behind the tree stump again. Fei Lian began to think for a bit. They could definitely use that moment when the wind whipped through the tall grass to escape. However, this was not possible for the female warrior as the tree stump was surrounded by an open space. Gufei probably wanted to take down that archer so that the warrior could escape. But it seemed rather contradictory if that was his plan because he had asked her to be the bait for the archer. Gufei already managed to make his way around the back of the hill. He had clearly identified the archer's location from that arrow just now. At the same time, he was very pleased to see that Ziu had managed to survive. Now, all he had to do was take care of this sniping player. As of the moment, Gufei could clearly see a male figure darting within the trees on top of the hill. The archer was cunning enough to understand the importance of changing location with every shot he took. It was a pity, however, that a more cunning person had actually made his way behind him. Chapter 35 Bludgeon. The archer was truly devious for coming up with such a stratagem. While the others merely trailed behind Gufei and Jun's Rain after overhearing the two's talk about a nearby treasure chest, this person had actually taken a vantage point and readied himself to snipe the players from afar. Such an action nauseated Gufei. Gufei's plan of action was to perform a sneak attack on this archer personally, giving him a taste of his own medicine. The wind was still howling, so the sound of the rustling grass hid Gufei's footfalls. He lowered himself onto the tall grass and shimmied forward, his eyes not once leaving the archer's figure. The person jogged up a small path on top of the hill, immediately drawing back his bow and staying still once he finished changing his position. "That's a pretty good move." Gufei was very impressed. The archer seemed like a masterful hunter awaiting his prey with immeasurable patience. This was actually beneficial to Gufei. However, if the archer had been someone unprofessional and was busy looking all over, he might have already been discovered. Gufei slowly made his way closer to the opponent with his steps being masked by the wind. When he finally arrived right behind the archer, the person had yet to discover his presence and was still rigidly staring downhill. Gufei casually followed his gaze and saw the treasure chest on top of that tree stump, as well as the spot where Fei Lian and him were previously huddling among the tall grass. Gufei revealed a sinister smile as he raised his magic staff high and brought it down heavily on the target with a whoosh. The whooshing sound finally alerted the archer that something was off behind him. But before he could turn around, the magic staff had already struck him right in the neck artery. The neck artery was an acupuncture point, so not much force was needed to induce a state of unconsciousness by hitting it. It should be possible to do something like rendering a person unconscious in this vermo given how realistic it was. Nevertheless, there existed a possibility that the strike Gufei had landed would be calculated using the game algorithm, which meant his strength might not be enough to cause an opponent to faint. As such, Gufei quickly threw in a kick as well after the archer took the blow to the neck, with the intention of knocking him down and allowing Gufei to better shaft the opponent all over his body. The archer was standing just at the edge of a slope leading downhill. Although he swiftly reacted to the sound of movement behind him, he was still slower than Gufei, who had already caused him to fall and roll down the hill with a kick. His head slammed into the trees multiple times as he rolled down. Gufei was worried that the archer would turn into an idiot by the time he finished his roll downhill. Yet, he was more worried that his inertia of rolling down the hill would cause him to fall straight into the lake. He quickly pulled out his friends list and contacted Ziu. "Someone's coming." "Catch him." "Who?" Ziu asked. "The person that shot you," Gufei said. In the next moment, Ziu's head peeked out from the tree stump as Gufei waved his hands at her. Seeing that she had no reaction, he quickly sent another message: "Just stand there and wait. He's coming soon." With that, Gu Fei hastily began to make his way downhill. Ziyu stood by the tree stump and looked about. In no time, she spotted something rolling toward her from up the hill. Is that the one Miles was referring to? Ziyu focused and tried to identify what it was. Once she confirmed that it was a person, she hopped over and stomped her other leg on that rolling body and finally stopped it. She sent a message over to Gu Fei. Got him. The person who got stomped on had no reaction at all. It was apparent that his trip downhill had caused him to faint after his head forcefully met too many trees along the way. Okay. Gu Fei messaged back as he kept running down. Ziyu was looking toward his direction, and when she saw a figure making its way over, she blurted out in shock, "There's still another." June's Rain had just taken that snipe from before. Even though she had rested while hiding behind the tree stump, her HP had yet to recover fully. Meeting another enemy at this juncture would be very disadvantageous. Fei Lian had seen the movement from his side as well, so he immediately got up from the bush he had been hiding in. Now that Ziyu saw she had assistance, she immediately shouted without even caring who the person was, "Come quick! There's still someone here." Fei Lian was naturally surprised as he quickly took out his bow and rushed out. Upon seeing that there was a figure rushing down the hill, he let loose an arrow. Gu Fei was already close enough to make out the two's faces and was about to call them. He did not realize that they could not see him clearly due to the poor lighting the trees provided, resulting in Fei Lian sending an arrow straight at him. Gu Fei hurriedly dodged to the side, while reaching out with his hand and catching the arrow. He shouted in exasperation, "It's me." "Oh." Ziyu recognized Gu Fei's voice and quickly stopped Fei Lian, "Don't shoot. He's one of us." Fei Lian did not even think of letting loose another arrow as he froze in place. He had not considered the possibility of someone having the ability to catch an arrow in flight. Once Gu Fei got out of the trees, he met up with the two and passed the arrow in his hand back to Fei Lian. He smiled toward them and said, "It's over." Fei Lian rigidly took the arrow without another word. Ziyu did not even note these details and was only happily cheering, "Treasure chest, treasure chest." She went ahead and hugged the said object. "We've finally completed the quest." "Quest?" Fei Lian blinked in realization. "Yup. This is our guild quest, retrieve the stolen treasure chest." Ziyu picked up the treasure chest high up in the air. Fei Lian's face revealed a look of dejection. Had he known that it was a quest item, he would not have wasted so much effort in fighting for it. However, he remembered his initial ill intentions. "If not for the archer's assault that caused me to work together with these two." As Fei Lian thought up to this point, he involuntarily retreated a step. Gu Fei did not seem to hold a grudge against him. As for Ziyu, she was a simpleton, so she had long forgotten about the matter. In the end, these two do not even bother with his existence. Seeing that they had no intention to fight him, he heaved a sigh of relief and looked at the player under Ziyu's feet. This person was an archer just like him, except he was decked out in top-grade equipment. Fei Lian gulped audibly. "Fei Lian, aren't you an archer? Why don't you check to see if there's any equipment on him that you could use?" Gu Fei asked. "What?" Fei Lian was absolutely taken aback by this. Did I hear it right? Although the two were not archers, this was still top-grade equipment they were talking about. They could easily loot the equipment, sell each in the market, and take the profit to purchase their own top-grade equipment. Fei Lian stared at Gu Fei and Ziyu, yet the two had not even bothered to reply to him. Ziyu was busy inspecting the treasure chest she was holding, trying her best to open it. "Why can't I open it?" Ziyu complained as she raised the chest and bashed it against the tree stump a few times. "Stop bashing it. Let me have a look." Gu Fei went over to her and helped as well. Fei Lian was stunned. Did these two really care that little about the top-grade equipment and were alright with leaving everything to him? Ziyu had already kicked the archer to one side. Fei Lian carefully knelt beside the body as he took another look at them. They were still busying themselves with the chest. Fei Lian finally felt at ease and boldly searched the unconscious archer's body, taking a hold of that bow right into his hands first. Maybe there's no way to open it right now since it's a quest item. Gu Fei could not find the mechanism that might open the chest after spending quite some time on it. After his explanation, he turned to see Fei Lian searching the archer's body. "Wait!" Gu Fei said. "I knew it." Fei Lian fumed. You should have just told me up front that you didn't want to share the loot. Why even let me experience a moment of happiness when you didn't intend to make it last? You clearly wanted to torture me first. I was even starting to think you're generous. Fei Lian was pissed off, but in the end the spoils did not belong to him. Having no say in this, he could only step aside as his face darkened. This guy, I know him. Gu Fei grimaced. Fei Lian was surprised. Royal God Call, Gu Fei said. That name sounds familiar. Fei Lian was after all an experienced player. He played mages before, Gu Fei said. Oh, yeah. You're right. Fei Lian nodded. So that famous person is actually this guy? Gu Fei nodded. Let's wake him up first. Ziu, carry him over to the lakeside, Gu Fei said. Why couldn't you do it yourself? June's Rain was still busy tinkering with the treasure chest. As if I can do it, Gu Fei laughed forcefully. Saying this sentence made him feel ashamed. It's all this game's fault. Gu Fei had to console himself with this thought. HMPH. Fine, I'll do it. Ziu walked over proudly, carrying Royal God Call with one hand and asking as she made her way to the lakeside, you said you know this guy? Why is this girl's train of thought late by a beat? Gu Fei nodded as he lamented in his head. Then why did he shoot us? Ziu asked. Maybe it's a misunderstanding. Let's just wake him up first. As the three got to the lakeside, Ziu threw Royal God Call onto the ground and Gu Fei splashed the unconscious man with lake water. Fei Lian suddenly thought of an important question. That Royal God Call actually fainted? How did Gu Fei manage to do that? There was currently no skill that could cause a fainting state. Even if there were, the game's feign status and a human that fainted were two separate things altogether. The former should only result in the player entering a trance. Royal God Call finally woke up with that splash of water. He immediately rolled away once he recovered. His hand had already taken a hold of his bow and knocked an arrow. At this same moment, the water that had entered his nose made him sneeze a couple of times. Chill. It's me, Gu Fei said calmly. Ah, Miles. Royal God Call recognized Gu Fei. What happened? He kept his bow ready as he stood up. He raised his hand to rub his head full of sore bumps. Even the strike that landed on his neck had caused lingering pain. Could it be the level 36 thief skill, bludgeon? Royal God Call was suddenly at a loss. Even him who spent his days and nights rushing to level up had not reached level 31, and yet there was someone who had apparently reached level 36. It was preposterous. Ahem. Gu Fei coughed once and ignored Royal God Call's exclamation. He asked instead, what are you doing here? I'm doing a quest to protect that treasure chest, he said as he saw Ziu hug the item. He laughed bitterly. What's the point of hugging it? It's just a quest item. There's nothing inside it. Only players who have received the quest to snatch it back would have a use for it. Ziu did not let go of the treasure chest even after hearing his words, and she held on to it even more tightly. It couldn't be that you guys. Royal God Call was stunned. Just what is going on? Do the quests in this game force two groups of players to kill each other? Although Gu Fei did not have much experience with playing online games, he knew that there were not any in-game quests, except for guild wars and such, that would forcefully put players together in a PvP scenario. Just as Gu Fei finished his sentence, Ziu exclaimed, Grap, Sis July and Sis Luo Luo are dead. Chapter 36. In utter defeat it began to drizzle in Yunjuan City. Gu Fei and Ziu rushed back to Amethyst Rebirth's headquarters with the treasure chest of the guild quest. Royal God Call was not really willing to hand over the treasure chest to them just like that. Back then, Ziu was only about 10 centimeters away from him. However, he was an archer that specialized in long-range fights, while Ziu was a warrior that specialized in melee. With Ziu in front of him, Royal God Call had to either retreat to the side or the back to lengthen the gap between them. Unfortunately, he also had Gu Fei on his left, Fei Lian on his right, and the deep lake on his back. More importantly, the treasure chest was no longer in his hands. They eventually ended the standstill by parting ways, and the person holding the chest left with it. There was a tacit understanding among them to forget the whole situation. At present, Gu Fei felt suffocated by the stifling atmosphere that had settled inside the Amethyst Rebirth's conference room. He casually walked over to the window and pushed open its casements. All the girls' faces wore a furious look. Their expressions remained unchanged even though Ziyu had managed to bring back a treasure chest. This was because everyone had just gone through quite an ordeal. Out of the 7 teams that were sent out, only the duo of Gu Fei and Ziyu survived. When Ziyu shouted out Sis July and Sis Luo Luo are dead before, she had actually used them to represent all 6 teams. Receiving such a traumatic experience in their first guild quest was seriously heartrending. Gu Fei could somewhat understand what they were feeling at the moment. Whereas male players were usually hailed as kings in online games, the female players were mostly seen as eye candies. These girls had banded together in hopes of proving themselves, yet they unluckily came across such a difficult hurdle from the get-go. Someone was bound to snap soon after soaking in their thoughts for so long. Gu Fei closely surveyed the crowd, especially that one lady. How despicable. As Gu Fei had expected, the first one to explode was indeed the fighter called Lai Lai. She sent a stool flying with her kick, slapped the table, and cursed, if they had the ability, they should face us for real. Those sneaky fuckers don't know how to fight fair. After voicing her grievances for almost 10 minutes, Gu Fei more or less surmised that Lai Lai had been instantly killed by a stealthy thief's backstab without even catching a glimpse of the opponent's face. Hence, she strongly condemned the opponent's fighting method. Gu Fei could only scoff at her comments with regard to the matter, since he also had executed a sneak attack on Royal God Call a while ago. While he enjoyed fighting face to face, he did not detest sneak attacks like Lai Lai. Gu Fei even considered such attacks to be on another level as they required a good grasp of the target's mentality. Ability to grasp at the right opportunity and the strength to execute a decisive strike were needed as well for this sort of attacks to succeed. Therefore, the skill required to insta-kill with sneak attacks was no less difficult than beating an opponent one-on-one. Lai Lai's outburst had stirred up the others' raging emotions as they began to voice their grievances as well. Gu Fei tried hard to sift through their jabbering to make heads or tails of the entire situation, and he ended up hearing one word the most: insta-kill. Out of the 12 ladies that went for the guild quest, 11 were insta-killed while the last one was collaterally killed. The last struggler died when a warrior opponent used Cyclone. She was not originally targeted by that warrior, however, she had gone up with the intention of helping her guild mate fend off the warrior. It resulted into them dying to Cyclone instead. There were other words that were also prominently mentioned by them: backstab, Cyclone, and snipe. Although the ladies did not have high levels, insta-killing them was still not an easy feat. Adding the fact that Gu Fei and Ziyu had met a royal god call, he suddenly thought of 3 people after hearing the 3 skill names: Sword Demon, War Without Wounds, and Royal God Call. Royal God Call could insta-kill players casually, but Gu Fei believed Sword Demon and War Without Wounds would be far deadlier than him. Sword Demon, whose level of ugliness could make even zombies cry in shock, was easy to describe. But since thieves usually unleashed backstab while they were on stealth, the ladies would have no idea of their killer's features. Gu Fei suddenly felt as if he was in hot water. If his guess was correct, then he had truly found himself between a rock and a hard place. Gu Fei was of course more attached to the mercenary group he was in. After all, he did not think he could get along with the members of this all-female guild. Had it not been for the minimum guild member requirement issue, he would have long since left the guild of his own volition. But if he were to consider everything, it would be hard to say who was in the right or wrong, as this was a scenario created by the system's quest design. Parallel World system was entirely at fault here, as it had distributed both quests simultaneously, one requiring the retrieval of the treasure chests and another requiring the safeguarding of the same chests. Gu Fei unluckily got caught in between the 2 parties involved. At the moment, all of this was just a conjecture. It was unclear if the mercenary group is indeed the other party involved in this matter. Gu Fei thought up to this point and suddenly stood up. "I've got something on, so I'll take my leave first." All the ladies were still busy with their discussion and hardly paid attention to Gu Fei. Gu Fei chuckled to himself as he headed toward the door. "Where are you going?" someone asked all of a sudden. Gu Fei felt touched when he looked back and saw that it was Ziyu who had called after him. Even though she was a little bit ditzy, She at least showed camaraderie now that they had gone through a near-death scenario together. Gufei lightly smiled after thinking of all this. I've got something on, so I'll be going first. With that, he pulled open the door and left the guild base. Everyone finally noticed that Gufei had left. When they remembered that it was only Gufei and Ziu that were victorious in claiming a treasure chest, they crowded around Ziu and started asking her about it. After leaving the guild, Gufei pulled up his friends list and saw that all 5 members of Young Master's Elite were online. Gufei recalled that ever since he had come to know Sword Demon, he never saw him go offline once. What a pro! Gufei was more familiar with Sword Demon out of the 5, so he naturally contacted him first to inquire about their involvement or non-involvement in the issue. Where are you? Gufei messaged him. Ray's Bar, Sword Demon replied. Ray's Bar was just 2 streets away, so Gufei directly headed toward the establishment. Gufei entered and greeted Ray before he went straight to the room they had all been accustomed to. He lifted the curtains and was startled for a moment. Besides Sword Demon, Young Master Han and Brother Assist were here as well. Miles is here. Brother Assist greeted Gufei. What a rare guest. Come take a seat. Young Master Han had always been generous with his snide remarks. Gufei smiled and did not say a word. Sword Demon shifted to the side, making room for him to take a seat. Where's Wounds and Royal? Gufei asked. Who knows? Probably grinding. Sword Demon said. All you guys do is grind. You don't even know how to enjoy life properly. We play games to enrich our lives, to rejuvenate our drab and lonely spirits. That's the most beautiful indulgence. Young Master Han waxed loquaciously. Is he drunk? Gufei asked Sword Demon. Sword Demon lowered his head and massaged his temples. That's just how he is. Gufei looked at Sword Demon with sympathy as he continued to ask the 3, no missions today? Young Master Han lifted his glass with a smile. Regular quests are unworthy of our attention. What kind of regular quests? Gufei pestered. Go to the Hall of Mercenaries and see for yourself. Young Master Han snapped. You didn't take any quest. Are you deaf? Didn't I say so already? Young Master Han replied in annoyance. Gufei was stunned for a few moments. This meant that this group was not the one that had ambushed Amethyst Rebirth. Gufei sighed in relief as he no longer felt as if he was caught between the 2 groups. Gufei did not care to find out the actual group behind the ambush. This was just a game after all. Killing and fighting were everyday occurrences. Moreover, this was probably a system-generated quest in which 2 groups were pitted against each other. It was not done out of spite or malice. In the end, Amethyst Rebirth failed the quest because the ladies' skills were below par. If they wanted revenge, then that would be something for another time. Besides, he was not certain that they would want him in the guild for that long. Gufei finally relaxed as he lifted the curtain and shouted, Ray, bring me a glass. The 3 in the room could not make sense of Gufei's sudden look of elation. Young Master Han latched onto this as he said carefully, Why are you glad when you heard we are not on a mission? I'm not happy because of that, Gufei explained. What's going on? Young Master Han asked. You're acting a little weird today. How so? Gufei asked. You don't come here if you have nothing in mind, Young Master Han stated. What? Gufei quickly said, I just want to hang out with everyone. Gufei had no intentions of telling them about the issue. Doing so would mean telling them about how he became Amethyst Rebirth's member as well. Gufei was unlike Fireball in this matter. He did not consider mingling with a bunch of ladies as a wonderful thing, so it was something best left unsaid. What do you mean hang out? We're not exactly that close, Young Master Han remarked. Damn, you're being way too straightforward. Gufei felt depressed. It was true that they had barely known one another for 3 days, and that this was just the 3rd time they had met, but to say such things so bluntly was rather rude. Sword Demon shook his head as he mumbled, That's just how he is. Sword Demon, if you've got something to say it out loud. Young Master Han smacked the table. Sword Demon shook his head once more, That's just how I am. Gufei finally realized that there was something off with Sword Demon. So he suddenly asked, What's going on here? Brother Assist grimaced, Can't you tell? They have had too much to drink. Fuck. Gufei felt foolish. Then, why are you still with them? They won't let me out. They got me sandwiched between them. Brother Assist smiled weakly. Gufei stood up. Sword Demon, Ray has got drinks for you. Oh, I'm coming. Sword Demon stood up and shuffled out unsteadily. Let's go. Goofy indicated the way out with his head. That was easy. Brother Assist sighed. Actually, I have something I wish to ask you, Goofy frankly said as he and Brother Assist walked out of the room, randomly picked a seat by the bar, and sat down. Chapter 37, The Information Expert. Young Master Han's loud shout could be heard from within the room. Sword Demon, if you've got something to say it out loud. Sword Demon was not in the room anymore, however. Instead, he was leaning over the bar counter and pestering Ray. Where are my drinks? You called me over to give them, right? Hand them over. Ray smiled dryly as he looked toward Goofy and Brother Assist, knowing they were all friends. Brother Assist was about to stand up when Goofy stopped him. He looked around and spotted two warriors sitting at a table nearby, both wearing beginner's equipment. Hey, fellas. Goofy called the two. They turned their heads. Do me a favor. Throw that guy by the counter in the back alley. I'm a mage and I don't have the strength to do it. Goofy pointed at Sword Demon as he spoke to them. The two barely registered his words and remained seated. Goofy thought for a moment before taking out 2 gold coins. Please help. The two warriors' eyes twinkled. They did not care whether he was a mage or not. What they cared for was the gold coins he was offering. Gold coins were hard to come by in Parallel World for a majority of newbie players. In fact, Goofy could already be considered as a wealthy player in-game after yesterday's mission payout. The two warriors took the coins and grabbed Sword Demon. Sword Demon was so drunk he could barely remain upright, let alone resist being dragged out of the bar by the two. It was not long before the two came back and excitedly asked, do you still have someone you want to throw out, bro? Nope, that's it. Thanks a lot. Goofy said to the two warriors. Is this fine? Brother Assist asked in a hesitant voice. Don't worry about it. It's all good. Goofy waved his hand nonchalantly. At this moment, young Master Han's singing voice could be heard from the room. Goofy had the urge to call the two warriors back again. He looks like a cultured man of refined taste, and often waxing poetically. Why is he? Goofy muttered. It seems like you don't know, Brother Assist laughed. Young Master Han is a new name he came up with for Parallel World. His previous alias was Drinking Addict. Wouldn't that make Sword Demon Smoking Addict? Goofy said. That's actually his name in other games before switching to Magic Domain, Brother Assist confided seriously. No way. Goofy was utterly taken aback. So why the change of name? Well, heard it's because Smoking Addict and Drinking Addict were being used as BL material by Fudgocious. Sword Demon would rather die than to call himself Smoking Addict again by the time he switched to playing Magic Domain. Master Han followed suit now that they are playing Parallel World together, Brother Assist explained. Oh. Goofy drawled and then asked, what's a Fudgoshi? It's a very strange creature, Brother Assist said. Goofy decided not to dig further since it sounded rather complex. He waved at Ray. Ray, get me 2 glasses of your most expensive liquor. Isn't that a little too much? Brother Assist felt stunned. As a self-proclaimed information expert, he knew very well how much the drink would cost. Don't worry about it, Goofy said flippantly as his order was brought to them. Goofy inhaled sharply when he asked the price. That's really expensive. Put it on young Master Han's tab. Ray was taken aback. Isn't he still here? Just let him pay for our order, Goofy said. Oh. Ray did not say anything further. He was not afraid of not being paid. Not paying for something was considered as fraud and was something penalized by the system. The immersion of the business was well protected by the system and the safeguards in place were foolproof. No matter how strong the players were, they were nothing more than paper tigers before the system. You're actually shameless. Brother Assist said to Goofy, I didn't peg you as such a person. Just drink. This is a rare opportunity. Goofy lifted his glass. Brother Assist drank a gulp and was pleasantly surprised. This is something else. It's well worth the coin. Especially when it's not your money. Goofy lifted his glass and finished it in one go. Ray, get me another one. Brother Assist was speechless. Oh, yeah. You said you want to ask me something, Brother Assist quickly inquired when he saw Goofy accepting the second glass from Ray. He was worried that Goofy would become drunk like those two. Yup. I do. Goofy placed his glass down. Is there a type of quest in this game that 2 separate parties can acquire and be pitted against each other? For example, Gufei was worried that he did not phrase the question well, so he was about to give an example when he saw Brother Assist bob his head. Yup, that happens. Actually, it's one of the selling points of Parallel World. Guild quests usually have plenty of participants, so the chances of acquiring a competitive quest at guild level are pretty high, whereas getting a competitive solo quest is much lower. The content of such usually focuses on snatching or protecting something. Brother Assist's information network was truly amazing, as it was exactly the situation Amethyst Rebirth found itself in, but Gufei still had some doubts and began to describe the situation Amethyst Rebirth was in to Brother Assist. When Brother Assist heard everything, he laughed. That's their mistake. What they discussed and planned for is a search mission called Find the Treasure Chest. But the quest they received is most probably the retrieval of the stolen treasure chest. While both quests seem similar, the goals are different. No plan is needed for retrieval of the stolen treasure chest, since every opponent the quest will set guild up against is not fixed. There's essentially no definite strategy guide for that. That makes sense. Gufei nodded his head repeatedly. He lifted his neck and finished the glass once more. Ray, liquor. How's your alcohol tolerance? Brother Assist felt apprehensive. Don't worry, Gufei laughed. I'm still sober with this drink. I'm not like those two. Brother Assist nodded and casually asked, why are you asking me these questions for? Did you join a guild? Nah. Why would I? Gufei hurriedly retorted. He would be a laughingstock if he admitted he was stuck with a bunch of ladies, so he slightly tweaked the details of what happened at Yunjiao Lakeside. He recounted the entire ordeal to Brother Assist from the perspective of a bored player crawling after the people snatching the treasure chest. Yunjiao Lakeside. Hey! Brother Assist, the information king, was obviously familiar with the location and immediately revealed a knowing smile once he heard that Gufei had gone there. I was just passing by. Gufei quickly added, oh, yeah, I even met Royal Godcall and he was doing the mission to protect a treasure chest. Gufei originally did not intend to mention Royal Godcall and only added that bit to divert the conversation. Oh, he's in a guild? I've never heard of that before, Brother Assist said. His guild must be pretty strong to be able to fend off all the others who were trying to snatch the treasure chest. I heard all the players were expert at using skills like Cyclone, Snipe, and even stealthy backstab, Gufei said. That's truly pretty strong. Only one guild in Yunjuan City would be that strong, Brother Assist said. What guild? Traversing Four Seas. That name's so old-fashioned. Brother Assist laughed. Guilds with old-fashioned names in online games won't be weak. Why? Just think, anyone could come up with such an old-fashioned name. But actually acquiring the name for their guild means that it must have been set up just as the game was released. The sooner they establish their guild, the more time they get to polish their skills. So of course they won't be too weak, Brother Assist explained. That makes a lot of sense. Gufei really learned a lot today. It was as the saying went, it is better to hear a wise person speak than to study for 10 years. It seemed he should spend more time with Brother Assist so as to improve his own gaming knowledge. After all, online game was not real life. Just like when he wanted to stop the players by the lakeside back then, but was completely ignored and even knocked over by their rush instead. The less such lapses of judgment occurred, the better. Got it. Gufei finished his third glass and stood up. Alright, time for me to leave. Later. Brother Assist watched Gufei leave the bar, and then he called out, Ray. Yes? Ray came over. Brother Assist pointed at the glass sitting on the table. Give me a bottle of that expensive liquor. I'm leaving with it. Ray was momentarily stunned before he finally asked, shall I put it on young Master Han's tab as well? Naturally, Brother Assist's smile appeared innocuous, but don't tell him it's me who ordered it. Gufei headed back to Amethyst Rebirth once he left the bar. Since he now understood the whole situation, he decided to report everything to the ladies so as to let them see the whole picture as well and stop their endless grumbling. Any guild member had permission to open the headquarters door. The ladies inside looked at him once he pushed open the door to enter, albeit their gazes somewhat varied. After hearing what had happened over at Yunjiao Lakeside, they understood that Gufei's involvement let them acquire treasure chest. However, there was one major issue. Gufei personally knew the sniping archer. Everyone's impression of Gufei boiled down to 3 points: high level, lousy equipment, and randomly added stats. The last 2 points alone were indicative of his idiocy, which was more than enough for them to ostracize him. Hearing that such a mage had defeated a level 30 well-geared archer was unbelievable, so finding out that Gufei knew the archer made the ladies suspect that he was a mole. This might mean that those two had acted the part together to help Gufei establish an image that would help him gain a foothold within the all-female guild. Lila came up with this speculation, and she even posited an example. How could a lousy mage get to such a high level? Except for leeching off the experience points of a skilled partner, what other way was there? Ziu was the one who told the story as well. Given how unreliable Ziu was, it needed no further elaboration. Even if there was a very obvious problem that cropped up back then, she would not have noticed it. Miles appeared even more suspicious because he had picked to partner up with Ziu. Could it be intentional? No matter what the case was, they decided to put him under detailed scrutiny. As all these ladies picked apart every detail with every word they uttered, they managed to twist the fact that Gufei got the treasure chest and saved Ziu into a situation where Gufei was a lecherous wolf who orchestrated a deep, vast, and intricately planned conspiracy. In the end, all the women split into 3 factions. Lai, who insisted that Gufei was a wolf in sheep's clothing, had the most supporters. July, Luo, and a few others belonged to the second faction that felt the ridiculous story woven by the ladies was impossible. Ziu was the only one who belonged to the group that understood nothing at all. When Gufei entered the house, all 3 faction members stared straight at him. They all smelled the scent of alcohol once he got about 2 steps near them. The ladies in the first faction, who already had a poor impression of Gufei, immediately dropped him down hundreds of points. Even the ladies in the second faction could not help but wrinkle their brows. Having suffered such a disastrous setback in their first guild mission, Gufei actually left to drink while they wallowed in their disappointment. It was far too insensitive to say the least. Only Ziu remained oblivious to everything. What's that smell? Ah, what sort of smell is that? Chapter 38, Finding a Mercenary Group. Gufei could see disgust written all over the women's faces when he suddenly reappeared at the guild house. However, he did not put much thought into it since they had always looked at him that way. Gufei stepped forward and opened his mouth to tell them of what he had learned, but he burped instead. The alcohol's smell became more evident as it permeated the air further. The ladies recoiled as if they had come into contact with the plague. Sorry. Gufei covered his mouth as he smiled sheepishly. All right, dismiss. July clapped her hands to draw everyone's attention. Ah! Gufei originally wanted to stop them to talk, but seeing how everyone rushed to leave, he could only sigh deeply. Pa. Something the matter? Luo stopped when she noticed Gufei's expression. There were only 3 people left inside the guild house now. July was always the last to leave, while Ziu was still trying to pry open the treasure chest. The guild quest that we got this time seems to be a competitive quest. Gufei explained the situation based on what he had learned from Brother Assist. The 2 listened intently before July nodded her head. I know. I wasn't mistaken. Our guild quest states that the mission only involves retrieving a stolen treasure chest. Gufei felt stunned. Someone set us up to make our quest fail, July said. Oh, do you know who is behind it? Gufei asked. If you don't, let me tell you who it is. Gufei had prepared this follow-up line. Sadly, July once again nodded, traversing 4 seas. Oh, so you already know. Gufei was a little disappointed. He had spent half the day searching for clues like a blind man, yet these women over here had already known who it was. I'm afraid this is just the beginning. Do be careful when you're outside next time, Miles, July said as she inspected Gufei's appearance. Oh, you're not wearing our guild emblem? I suppose you'll be fine. Then they won't ever suspect that we have a male in our guild. July showed a forced smile when she said this. Just what's going on? Gufei was puzzled. Traversing 4 seas. A member of that guild has some bad blood with us. This sabotage carried out on our guild quest is probably his revenge, so everyone should be extra careful out there, July said. Okay, got it. Gufei looked at Ziu. The girl was still fiddling with the treasure chest. It seemed like she would not give up until she finally destroyed the thing. I'll be going, then, Gufei said his farewell to the 3 and left the guild house. Watching Gufei leave, Luo looked July in the eyes. You're not going to tell him about that? No, there's no need for him to know. He's a new member we intend to replace anyway, so there's no need to involve him, July said. Luo spoke in trepidation. How coincidental it is for him to spawn in Yeonju City like us. July had grown pensive for quite some time when she suddenly asked, Luo, do you know of any noteworthy mercenary group? Are we looking for external aid? Luo felt somewhat shocked. July sighed, we are in no condition to take him on right now. Don't forget your original reason for creating this guild, which is just to enjoy the game together with some girls, Luo reminded. And look what happened. July laughed bitterly. This is an unforeseen development. There are many cities to spawn in this game, yet he just had to spawn in the same one as us. Looks like this game won't be simple any longer. With all these ladies following me, I need to come up with a way to get us through this hurdle. Luo had nothing to add. Mercenary group, you say? I don't think there's one at present that could go up against such a large guild. If one isn't enough, then we'll just have to hire more, July said. I know you can afford to hire many, Luo wore a forced smile, but the problem is, I know of a superb mercenary group. Ziu suddenly blurted out. July and Luo almost had a heart attack from Ziu's interjection. The two were absorbed in their conversation that they had forgotten about this other girl in the room. Ziu, do you really know of a group? July smiled. What could this airhead possibly know? I learned about the group when I was doing a solo quest. Someone completed the Seizing the Mountain Bandit Leader Sato quest by hiring a mercenary group, Ziu told the two eagerly. July and Luo looked at each other. Seizing the Mountain Bandit Leader Sato was considered as the hardest among the available quests, and completing it was deemed impossible. Just entering Oolong Cave alone would require players to confront monsters above their own levels. Hence, any players that could survive for 5 minutes inside it would be considered as pretty good. There were even rumors that someone had gathered a large group of players to attempt the quest and managed to make their way up to the boss, but they were all wiped out and sent back to the spawn point in the end. Ever since then, no one else dared to take a crack at it. Someone managed to complete that quest. When was this? Luo asked. The completion of such a difficult quest should have been big news, yet she heard not even a peep about it. I think it was last night, Ziu answered. Oh. Luo finally understood. This news had yet to spread since it had only been completed hours ago. What's the mercenary group's name? July began to feel that they had a fighting chance. Given the strength of this mercenary group, they only had to make sure that it was not affiliated to Traversing Four Seas. I forgot, Ziu said. How many members does this group have? Who's its leader? July continued to ask Ziu. She began to think hard, yet to no avail. Forget it. Luo smiled. Let's not ask Ziu. I'll just go check it out myself. Go ahead. July had a solemn expression. This mercenary group was possibly their best bet right now. Gufei was currently strolling around Yeonju City as he pondered on a question. July mentioned that somebody from Traversing Four Seas had an enmity with her. It was so bad that it had caused that person to expend so much effort into messing up this one simple guild quest. July did not look like she wanted to speak more on this, so Gufei chose not to pursue the matter either. Parallel World had not been up for a long time. At least, it was not long enough for someone to develop such a deep grudge toward Amethyst Rebirth. It was apparent that this dispute had occurred in an online game in the past. Could it be something that had happened in real life instead? Gufei thought of finding Brother Assist and getting him to investigate this matter more, but he felt it somewhat awkward to ask for another favor so soon. He resisted that initial urge and instead thought of how the ladies had done their own sleuthing. Gufei decided to find out about the matter on his own, so he logged off immediately. Gufei felt like a novice as he tried to search for information on the internet. He keyed in July and was overloaded with all sorts of information one could imagine. Afterward, he unwittingly keyed in Luo's IGN1 Ruthless Falling Flowers and found an entry about a certain online history that was written like a short novel. In this short story, Ruthless Falling Flowers was just a side character who got mixed up in the mess of the two main characters, July's Heat and No Smile. No Smile actually enjoyed smiling. Gu Fei felt somewhat startled by such an opening sentence to the story. He could not help but praise the talent of today's writers. Since he was not here to appreciate the story, Gu Fei quickly skimmed through it to get to his real purpose. It had the elements of love and hate, lies and truth, cheating and being cheated like any classical stories. The July's Heat in the story was a very passionate and generous woman who ended up getting cheated by No Smile until she had nothing left. Gu Fei wondered if this person was really the steadfast guild leader that he knew. The story did not end there, though. After July had left the game, another character came. This new person used an even more wicked method to cheat No Smile out of everything. The rumors said that this person was July's Heat, adopting a professional attitude to exact revenge. No Smile, who was filled with hate, chose to leave the game as well. Since it was an online game, the story had come to an end at that point. And yet, the characters had all gathered here in Parallel World, as if looking for a chance to continue their intricate story. Gu Fei assumed that the person whom July said she had an antagonistic relationship is this player No Smile. At this moment in the game, Luo Luo left the guild house and went to the tavern where people acquired solo quests. Many kinds of quests existed in Parallel World. Aside from the quests that could be acquired from taverns, there were also those that could be obtained serendipitously from the streets and plot-based quests that involved NPCs. These NPC-related quests would not appear again after their completion, and the quest rewards players could earn from completing them were far more enticing than the normal quests. The solo quests that players referred to were those listed by the system taverns. The list would refresh every hour for the players to choose anew. Although these quests were limited to a first-come, first-served basis, they were all repeatable. The solo quests were the staple method in which people could earn experience points through questing. The so-called most difficult solo quest to date, seizing the mountain bandit leader Sato, came from this tavern as well. Because of this, Luo Luo had an easier time looking for information about her subject compared to Gu Fei. All she had to do was casually ask a few players. However, everyone reacted with shock, just like Luo Luo once did, when they heard that a mercenary group had managed to complete the seizing the mountain bandit leader Sato quest. It seemed like this matter had not gotten to the grapevine yet. Luo Luo thought up to this and left the tavern to make her way to the Hall of Mercenaries. The Hall of Mercenaries had two large chambers, East Hall and West Hall. The East Hall was the place for system-released missions and where a majority of mercenary groups would go to complete missions. The West Hall was for players' support. It was the place that embodied a mercenary group's essence, clearing monsters and solving problems for players for an agreed-upon price, and where professional mercenaries would go to obtain their missions from. There was a logbook in each of the two halls, which allowed players to check the strength of a mercenary group. Luo Luo arrived in front of the West Hall's logbook and patiently flipped through it. Finally, under the completed mission section, Luo Luo found the record about the seizing the mountain bandit leader Sato quest. The mage that took the quest did not have the ability to complete it on his own, so he hired people from the Hall of Mercenaries for a high price. That was yesterday. The mercenary group that took the mission was. Luo Luo tapped her index finger as she traced the log to get the relevant information she needed. Young Masters Elite. Mercenary Group Leader, Young Master Han. Chapter Notes. 1. IGN dash is short for in-game name. Chapter 39, Pleasure working with you. Young Master Han. Luo Luo muttered the name under her breath. Online gaming experts would not easily change their name no matter what games they played. The habit of retaining their IGN for various games was no longer limited to professional gamers, as even the average players did it as well. Having a famous IGN had great appeal. The value of this intangible asset was enormous in online games, especially when it came to forming guilds, mercenary groups, or similar group activities. Luo Luo had wondered if the mercenary group was formed by an illustrious gamer after hearing from Ziu about how they completed the seizing the mountain bandit leader Sato quest. It was not the first time she had come across the name Young Master Han despite it not being associated with a famed expert. She was certain that she had seen a similar name in the top few ranks of the official total experience earned leaderboard for the priest job class. Luo Luo had naturally monitored the rankings since she was a priest. Luo Luo noticed a row of words while she was reading the record in the logbook. In the notes column for the mission, The employer had a final remark regarding the mercenary group, and it was just this one sentence: it has the strongest mage. Strongest mage. The mage ranked first in terms of level on the current ranking leaderboard was a player called Drifting. But since a massive amount of experience points was needed to level up once players reached level 30, it was not realistic to be the best by merely getting to a higher level in Parallel World. Equipment and skill proficiencies were what mattered more in deciding the ability of each player. Thus, the strongest mage might not be referring to the current highest level mage Drifting. Speculating any further was pointless. Luo decided to simply contact the mercenary group and consider things later. She opened her friends list and keyed in young Master Han to look him up. Seeing that he was online, Luo quickly added him as a friend. "Hello." Luo messaged him. Young Master Han replied in about half a minute, "Hello. Young Masters Elite?" Luo asked. "That's right. I have a request for your mercenary group. Can we talk in person?" Luo asked. "Raise bar." "Got it. I'll be there right away." Luo closed the message window, feeling reassured. Young Master Han's messaging style had the air of a clean-cut professional, which left a good impression on her. The way she saw it, someone who spoke so straightforwardly would definitely accomplish matters with efficiency. Ray's Bar was famous. Although Luo had not been there before, she knew where it was located. After passing a few streets, she arrived at the back entrance of Ray's Bar. The side alley was hardly used by anyone, yet a person currently lay sprawled there. She quickly stepped forward and the heavy smell of alcohol filled her nostrils. The player was actually snoring as he slept. It seemed like the man had drunk quite a lot. Luo furrowed her brows and did not bother about him anymore. She made her way around the prone body and entered the bar. Ray welcomed her warmly as she entered. "May I take your order, miss?" I'm actually looking for someone," Luo said. "Who might that be?" Ray was still speaking to her warmly. "Young Master Han," Luo answered as she stared at the legendary Ray. Was it possible that he actually knew every single customer in the bar? Ray continued smiling as he pointed toward one of the rooms. "He'll be over there." "Oh, thank you." Luo was a little surprised as she thanked him and headed toward the indicated room. As she lifted the curtain aside, Luo saw a man seated within. Anyone who saw the angelic features of young Master Han would be amazed. Luo could not help but freeze on the spot for a bit before finally asking, "Young Master Han? Ruthless Falling Flowers?" Young Master Han answered with a question. Luo nodded her head. "Have a seat." Young Master Han gestured as he shouted out the room. Ray answered almost immediately. "Do you have an order? Clear the table please. I have some business to discuss." Young Master Han smiled. Ray dexterously picked up the empty glasses on the table. Luo found that this surreal bar did live up to its name. It actually had such a thorough and realistic service like a bar in reality. Was the person presently cleaning the table in front of her really the renowned wealthiest player of Parallel World? "Bring me a glass of water, if you will." Young Master Han spoke to Ray as he turned to ask Luo, "Do you have anything in mind?" "Get me a glass of water as well," Luo said. A bar that actually served water. This was one thing that the system-generated taverns did not have. Luo was interested in finding out just what sort of water this bar would serve. The glasses were quickly brought over. Young Master Han took one and drank a big gulp as Luo sipped the other politely, trying to taste the difference. "It's just water. There's nothing special about it." Young Master Han smiled. Luo felt slightly embarrassed as she placed the glass down. "Tell me about your request. How many people does your mercenary group have?" Luo wanted to get a better grasp of the situation first. "There are 6 of us," young Master Han replied. "That's all?" Luo was taken aback by that answer. "We're an elite team. We focus on quality, not quantity." Young Master Han smiled once more. "Did you finish the quest seizing the mountain bandit leader Sato with just the 6 of you?" Luo asked once more. "Yup, we did." Young Master Han's enunciation of the word "we" softened, and it seemed to lack confidence. However, such a small detail was not noticed by Luo, who simply nodded her head. "Can you introduce me to the other members?" Young Master Han did not give her a definite answer as he leaned back and said, "Why don't you tell me about your request first? If we're not interested in it, there won't be a need for any introductions." Oh, then what sort of mission interests you? Luo said. Something that sounds impossible, young Master Han stated. In that case, you'll definitely be satisfied with my request, Luo said. Let's hear it. Help us deal with traversing 4 seas, Luo said this sentence slowly. In truth, the hope she originally had for this mercenary group had dimmed quite a bit. She could hardly believe that this mercenary group had only 6 members. Even if the 6 were talented individuals, they were still in the game's early stages. The gap in terms of strength and skill could not be too far off no matter how powerful these pros were. The ladies of Amethyst Rebirth were insta-killed by the guild members of Traversing 4 Seas. That the Traversing 4 Seas members were able to do so was a clear indication of just how powerful they were. Even the current strongest players would not be much better when compared to them, right? However, young Master Han did not even raise his brow upon hearing the name Traversing 4 Seas and instead asked Luo, isn't that the guild considered as the strongest in Yunjuan City at the moment? Luo nodded. They won't be having that title soon. Young Master Han flashed her a dazzling smile. What do you mean by that? Because you just hired my mercenary group to deal with them. Young Master Han explained very matter-of-factly. Luo's eyes widened. This person in front of her was very. Right now, I only need to know one thing, young Master Han said. Luo was somewhat puzzled. She felt that there were still many things to discuss with regard to the matter. Surely, young Master Han planned to introduce her to all the team members and give her a general understanding of their group, right? Or even settle the issue of payment at the very least. However, the only question that passed young Master Han's lips was, how do you want us to deal with that guild? At this point, Luo was utterly flabbergasted. She originally intended to hire just a single mercenary group at first, and if she found that one group was not enough, she would proceed to hire a few more groups. Only then would she and the other ladies in the guild discuss about carrying out their plan. She believed that was what July had in mind as well. But this person spoke as if a 6-person mercenary team could handle the matter alone. Could that even be done? Seeing that Luo was momentarily speechless, young Master Han suddenly laughed. Alright, I know what we have to do. You do? Luo was surprised. Ruthless falling flowers. Ahem. Your guild's goal is definitely to deal with No Smile. Young Master Han chuckled as he said this. This young Master Han is definitely not just a regular gamer. Luo came to this conclusion as only an experienced online gamer would know about the feud between July and No Smile. However, I'm afraid just dealing with No Smile won't be enough. How about we revert back the entire core members of Traversing 4 Seas to 0? Young Master Han asked. Luo was dumbfounded. That's settled then. Young Master Han stood up and prepared to leave. Wait. Luo roused. What's the matter? Is it not enough? Young Master Han asked. No, I just wanted to ask about your fee. Luo said. Let's discuss that after we finish the mission at hand. I'm not worried you won't pay us. Young Master Han smiled. Luo was moved. Talking about payment only after the mission was completed was another way of saying, if we can't accomplish the task, we won't talk about payment. Was this person actually serious this whole time and not merely bragging about the mercenary group's capabilities? Or would he end up backing out from the mission after a few days? I'll contact you later. Young Master Han exited the room with that final words. He did not seem to be faking any part of this. His mercenary group's strength might be the real deal after all. Their completion of the Sato quest was enough proof to back up this claim. They did not seem to have any relations with Traversing 4 Seas, so she had to secure their help on this matter. As she pondered on this while staring at the glass in front of her, the bar's peaceful atmosphere was abruptly overturned by a ghastly cry that rang across. WHO ordered all these? Luo immediately got up and parted the curtain. She saw young Master Han standing by the bar, roaring at Ray as he vigorously shook the bill in his hand. Ray's expression remained unchanged as he replied to young Master Han's question, it's the mage you were with before. That guy. Young Master Han viciously slammed his palm on the table before him as if it was Gufei. Luo Luo tiptoed next to him and peeked at the bill in his hand. She inhaled sharply. Listed on the bill was the current most expensive in-game liquor. A person ordered a whole bottle and 4 glasses of it. The cost amounted to 200 gold coins. It was an astronomical sum that even the combined coins of everyone inside the bar at the moment might not be enough to pay fully. That mage was so strong that nobody right now could afford his bill. Strongest indeed. Now, can we talk about the payment issue? Luo Luo suddenly smiled as she asked. Young Master Han turned back and stared at her before he sighed heavily. Let's go in and talk about it. Can you introduce me to that mage? Luo Luo asked as she made her way back to the room with young Master Han. Don't mention him in front of me. Young Master Han's eyes flashed a murderous glint. What's his name? Luo Luo pestered. You want to know his name? It's shameless. Young Master Han was determined not to speak his name. Achoo. Gufei suddenly sneezed while he was looking for more information about July's heat and No Smile's involvement. That's weird. I've been sneezing a lot lately, Gufei mumbled to himself as he rubbed his nose. Chapter 40, Mercenary Group. Roll out. Luo Luo left Ray's bar grinning from ear to ear. Although young Master Han had not revealed who the other group members were, she at least learned that they were all level 30 experts. As for that strongest mage, young Master Han only said, he soloed the mountain bandit leader Sato. In truth, Gufei was only able to solo kill Sato through a series of lucky coincidences. But for anyone not privy to the inner workings involved, hearing about Gufei's singular achievement made it seem like he was monstrously strong. After talking to young Master Han, Luo Luo now had absolute faith in the mercenary group's strength, particularly in that mysterious mage. Still, a sliver of doubt lingered in Luo Luo's heart. Young Master Han had remained tight-lipped about his fellow group members' names for some unknown reason. Nevertheless, she had managed to acquire their service in exchange for helping young Master Han clear his bar tab. Although he did not say how much their exact service fee was, he would at least feel indebted to her for footing the bill. Given young Master Han's extreme narcissism, Luo Luo was certain that he would never be able to live down owing somebody anything, and thus would not renege on their deal. However, the mission she gave them was not to kill any particular Traversing 4C's guild member back to level 0, as she knew that doing so would not resolve the problem. Instead, she requested the mercenary group to convince Traversing 4C's to not make things difficult for Amethyst Rebirth again. Young Master Han still agreed to such a vague request. His parting words to her were, "Don't worry, I'll ensure that No Smile won't be smiling for real." He did not reveal how they would accomplish the mission, though. He just told Luo Luo to relax and watch the show as it unfolded. I hope he can make good on his promise, Luo Luo thought. Young Master Han immediately rallied his troops once he had sent Luo Luo away. He was prepared to settle the score about the bill with Gufei as well. Yet he became vexed instead when he saw on his friends list that Gufei was offline. The others quickly arrived at Ray's bar. War Without Wounds carried Sword Demon back inside from the side alley. Why's this guy sleeping out there? War Without Wounds asked. No one knew the reason except for Brother Assist, who was trying to hold back his laughter. Sword Demon was clearly still drunk as he managed to resume sleeping in one corner after being carried back inside. Let's hear about this mission first, Royal God Call said. Young Master Han briefed everyone about the matter at hand. July's heat and No Smiles drama was public knowledge in the online gaming community. Since all were veteran online gamers aside from the absent Gufei, they were able to speed things up. Although killing No Smile is easy, ensuring that he won't bother Amethyst Rebirth afterward is not. We need to plan this long term. Brother Assist, please gather intel about No Smile from Traversing 4C's. Young Master Han dictated. Brother Assist nodded as he turned to look at Royal God Call. Royal, you're Traversing 4C's member, right? How did you know? Royal God Call was stunned. Everyone shifted their gazes onto him. Their present task was to take down Traversing 4C's, yet one of them actually belonged to that guild. Don't look at me like that. I only joined that guild for fun, Royal God Call hastily explained. Royal, today, over by Yunjiao Lakeside. Alright, Brother Assist. I give up. Royal God Call was dumbfounded. You really are an information expert. How did you find out? Brother Assist's smile was as calm as ever. What's the matter? Young Master Han asked. Just this afternoon, Traversing Four Seas put together a party to interfere with Amethyst Rebirth's guild quest over by Yunjiao Lakeside. I was a part of that party. I even met Miles there. Miles? He was with a girl who is most likely from Amethyst Rebirth, Royal God Call said. And then? Let's not talk about it. I heard that Amethyst Rebirth is an all-female guild, yet the ones I saw attempting to snatch the treasure chest were all men except for that girl. Since I was shooting from afar, I did not monitor my immediate surroundings. Someone crept behind me and kicked me down the hillside, causing me to faint. When I came around, I saw Miles. He seems to know the girl, so I gave her the chest, Royal God Call explained. Who hit you at the time? I don't know. I asked Miles, but he didn't see anything either, Royal God Call said. Weird. That person had gotten behind you. Killing you would have been super easy. Why did he leave you alive? Everyone wondered. Luck. It's luck. Royal God Call felt thankful inside that that person had only kicked him downhill and not killed him outright. Players incurred severe penalty for dying in Parallel World. Not only would they drop a whole level, they could also possibly lose an item from their inventory. This design was created with the players who would join the game at a later stage in mind. At present, the only operational server of Parallel World was this one, so the officials placed a cap on the number of players that could play the game. But once the number of gaming server increased, the game company would definitely pull in more players. Evidently, the new players would be weaker compared to the old players. The game company was worried that that might lead to the new players losing interest into continuously playing Parallel World. Hence, the developers had increased the amount of experience points needed to level up and came up with the severe penalties for dying. This way, the newbies would be able to compete with the veteran players. From what I heard, all the Amethyst Rebirth's members were insta-killed. How come the one you met actually succeeded? Your party must have been really mad at you. Brother Assist Gifwad. Royal God Call immediately lifted his nose high. Those people don't know jack shit about how things were on my end. That girl wouldn't have managed to escape if I had not held back for Miles' sake. Fuck, they even dared to call me an unskilled archer. Cunts, I'll quit that guild right now. Wait, don't leave that guild yet. Young Master Han stopped him. Why? Royal God Call asked. Stay in Traversing Four Seas. It might come in handy, young Master Han suggested. Act as a spy. Royal God Call easily understood his intention. Okay, that's all for now. Young Master Han declared, this mission is unlike those garbage system generated quests, so we must be careful and prepare thoroughly. If anyone sees Miles online, immediately inform him as well. And him? Brother Assist pointed to the snoring sword demon in the corner. Wounds, where did you grab him from? Young Master Han asked. The side alley behind the bar. War Without Wounds answered. For God's sake, why didn't any passerby kill him? This guy's useless. How can he be my partner when his alcohol tolerance is so low? Get up, sword demon. Get up. Young Master Han laid two well-placed fists straight towards sword demon's noggin. I'll leave you guys to it. We're going to take our leave. The three could no longer bear to look on and left the premise. Gufei did not get online again yesterday, so it was only at this moment today that he received young Master Han's urgent message. Gufei thought that his little ploy of shoving his drinking bill to young Master Han must have been found out by him already, so he took his money pouch and made his way over to Ray's bar. He was only trolling young Master Han and had no intention of making him pay the total bill. When he lifted the curtain to their usual room, he saw all his teammates seated and glaring at him. Young Master Han's eyes even had a hint of murderous intent. Gufei felt a chill in his heart as he wondered, what's all this about? It's just a harmless prank. Are they planning to beat me up for that? He touched his small money pouch as he cheekily said, everyone's here. We've waited for you for hours. Young Master Han hollered, can't you spend less time out in the sun and more time doing meaningful stuff online? Gufei was speechless. What logic was this? Fine, that's enough. Let's not waste any more time. Get seated and hear Brother Assist's briefing for our current situation. Young Master Han seethed. Gufei felt like commending young Master Han for not bringing up yesterday's bill issue. He sat down and nudged Brother Assist. What is it about? Our new mission, Royal God Call replied instead. Oh. Gufei responded. Brother Assist cleared his throat to begin. No smile is, eh? Gufei cried out, no smile? Everyone stared at him. I know that guy, Gufei hurriedly clarified. What are you shouting for? We all know him too, young Master Han said. You want others to find out we are plotting his death? Gufei quickly whispered, we're killing him? Shut up. Listen to what Brother Assist has to say. Young Master Han was clearly still pissed at Gufei for his yesterday's stunt even if he had not brought it up. Brother Assist cleared his throat once more. The name No Smile is quite famous in the online gaming community. I'm not going to talk about his past, since I'm sure we've all heard of it before. This time, his job class in Parallel World is Thief. He's at level 30 and is ranked 11th on the experience earned efficiency leaderboard for the Thief job class. He is also one of the 4 core members of Traversing 4 Seas. His stat point distribution seems to lean toward strength, but we're not sure about his equipment. Movement-wise, he's spotted grinding at Yangtze Valley, in the western side of Yanjuan City. He usually tags along with his fellow guild members and is never seen alone. Brother Assist paused for breath before he continued, Yangtze Valley's monsters are at level 40. Sword Demon, you're also usually grinding there, right? The monsters over there have high attack but low defense. It's more suitable for players with job classes that have high dodge rating as well as high attack, like Thief. Sword Demon nodded and added, Miles grinds there as well. Brother Assist was momentarily stunned and unwittingly commented, it's better for mages to grind higher level monsters over by Yunwu Basin. The monsters there move much slower and have lower magic defense. Most mages are found grinding there. Oh, I'll check it out next time, Gufei said. Everyone stared at Gufei blankly. Brother Assist calmed himself down before continuing, that's what we know so far. If we want to get more details, it will require more time. It's enough. Let's show them what we got. With a little shock and awe, young Master Han said this as he retrieved some cloth from his pocket and threw the stack on the table. Take one each. What are these for? Gufei picked one up and noticed that it had a triangular shape. For covering our faces, young Master Han said. What for? Gufei was startled. This mission is different from the one we did last time. What we're going up against isn't a dumb AI but other players just like us. The appraisal skill can view our level, job class, and equipment, but not our names. Covering our faces will circumvent this problem of being identified, young Master Han said. There's no need for this. Everyone was clearly against the idea. Young Master Han's nostrils flared as he said coldly, I do not tell the employer your names. If you think this is an unnecessary precaution and refuse to wear the cloth, I won't force you to do it. But I'll warn you, if one of our faces isn't covered, we might indirectly trouble our fellow squad mates. I'll be wearing mine. You guys do yours. Silence ensued. After a while, Sword Demon took a piece from the pile in front of them and stuffed it into his pocket. War Without Wounds, Brother Assist, and Royal God Call proceeded to take a piece. Gufei hesitated for a bit before finally taking one piece himself, so as to avoid inconveniencing the others. Why are there 2 pieces left? After taking a piece, Gufei realized that there were still 2 strips left on the table. Young Master Han kept the last 2 as he said lightly, just these 2 strips may not be enough to mask my peerless beauty entirely. Fuck off. Everyone exclaimed in unison. Okay. Set your conversation window to the private mercenary group channel. Once we're all ready, make your own way toward Yangtze Valley. The 6 members of Young Master's elite group set off once again,